Drum roll, please, Adam.
Probably sounds terrible.
The Lions, the Detroit Lions, after that wonderful intro.
Boo.
Sound production done by Adam Wilkins.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what the sophomore, like how it fixes that.
No, the Detroit Lions. I'm not outwardly negative about their long-term output, but I'm relatively more negative about them than I am the Commanders in terms of a long-term perspective.
For sure.
The first thing that I want to do, because my theme for this is kind of suffering from success. So I wanted to play the same game with you where we go through the Detroit Lions. And don't worry, I'll give an actual intro this time, Adam. So don't you dare take that away from me. I'm going to do it. Let's pull
Okay, fine.
We're going to be predicting the Lions record because Adam's a little... I'm not going to say that.
You did that all wrong. Let's predict the Lions 2025 NFL record. That was
Dang it. Stink. I'm the worst at podcasting.
Yeah, you just don't have it in you. It's okay.
Week 1 at the... No. Sorry, because it puts the Chiefs first because the Chiefs are my favorite team. So on the ESPN app, it messes up the schedule. Screw it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live, folks. Do you even get that reference?
No.
You're silly. I should have prepared.
I like how you were gonna say. I like how you said you were gonna say stupid, and then you were like, "Wait, we can't lose our monetization with our 32 subscribers." And said, "Let me say silly."
Even though you've already this episode said your wife's a whore.
It's true.
Week 1, the Packers, the Bears,
Win.
the
Win.
Ravens, the
Loss.
Browns. Yeah,
Win.
about that one. The Bengals.
Well, it's because when I said loss, I accidentally put a
The
finger
Bengals.
up. Loss.
Chiefs.
I said,
Win. Come on now. The Buccaneers.
loss.
Vikings. Commanders. Oh.
Loss.
Okay. Eagles. Philly.
Loss.
Giants. The Packers. The Cowboys. The Rams.
Win. I'm gonna say win.
Steelers.
Win.
Vikings. Bears.
Win.
Okay.
I'm gonna go loss.
Even with that loss, so how many did you end up with? 11.
11.
So 11-6, and you
That's
were
not a
I mean,
lot.
maybe you were being overly negative. Maybe someone come through and say like 12. Even still, last team this season went 15-2 and won the conference. I think with how much harder their schedule is and sort of a return to earth that's due for a team, and it's not even necessarily a prediction of playoff success, but just a record regression after a season of 15-2 is logical. That's now all of a sudden a 3 to 4 win decline. And I potentially think it could be even further, and I'll go ahead and make the case. You ready, Adam? I'm gonna blow your mind.
I'm ready, dude.
Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are gone. It's just a fact. They left, and now you. I don't know why I slipped into Trump there again. They left.
I know. I noticed that too. They were fired.
No, they got their own head coaching jobs. That's what happens when you succeed. Your coordinators leave you desolate and despairing. And now you have Naked and Afraid. Great television program. The new defensive coordinator is a man who has never been a defensive coordinator before. What are you laughing at?
Great television program.
I'm trying to be young and start. Your thumbs up came up again. Your thumbs up came up again. It was a thumbs up jump scare.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Anyway.
So the coordinators are gone, and now you have a defensive coordinator who's an internal hire who seems to be well known or well liked, but it's a complete unknown, first time ever having anywhere near this level of power in an NFL franchise. And then you bring in a new OC, John Morton, who this is actually his second stint as an OC because he was the offensive coordinator for the Jets in 2017. Wah, wah, and then we put a wacky sound effect there. No, no matter what you think of, maybe it'll be better, the roster will elevate them, their team, their internal hires or guys who are familiar with the team, they have an understanding of the system that was in place. There is a clear brain power regression within the Lions as a franchise. At least that would be... It would be more safe to assume that than they maintained or even improved.
Can I say something real quick that I think potentially in a lot of people's mind could be a hot take, but for anyone who has any brain cells at all would just be a reasonable thing to say? I think that coaching staff is significantly more important than roster construction, and that roster construction rarely ever elevates past a not necessarily poor, but even just a mediocre coaching staff, where a high level coaching staff can significantly improve in terms of win total a bad roster.
Obviously, we're by no means NFL insiders, but the average person or NFL fan oftentimes doesn't, and we can be victims of this ourselves. We don't think about how much goes on in a coaching staff. Not like you think about I just smacked I just punched that.
It sounded like
I just punched my mic.
That's the noise. That's the noise you make after you make a sacrifice to the football gods. Just
that's
boom.
Awesome. No, the amount of because what only ever gets talked about is three guys: your head coach, your offensive and your defensive coordinator, and occasionally on a Sunday Night Football, Chris Collinsworth will give a shout out to a special teams coordinator, and you're like, oh yeah, those guys exist.
Yeah, they're like, his daughter survived cancer. He's a great guy.
And what's awesome about every special teams coordinator is they are all ancient. They are all seconds from the grave. Every single one of them is so old because of 90% of the time, it's just some guy who never got his break as an offensive or defensive coordinator and a head coach. And he's like 85 years old. Dude, they're putting him out to pasture.
He's like the coach from Waterboy. Just like, first you go left, then you go right.
No, it's...
And then you think about going.
And obviously we're making a joke because my whole point is that every part of the coaching staff is important. Special teams coordinators are incredibly crucial. But shout out to them, friends of the show. But it's also really funny because all of them are just ancient and losing it and probably slightly senile.
Yeah, they had a consensus brand or community brain aneurysm whenever they changed the rules.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's so funny. Imagining every special team the news coming across your desk. You're like, shit. I have to completely change everything.
What do I do?
It's so funny. Like some 85-year-old who's like slurping cello, getting the updated rules. Like some 22-year-old intern slides it onto his desk, just has a heart attack. Anyways, special teams coordinators are very important and crucial, and we love them. No, the Lions coordinating got worse, and coaching staff across the board, more likely than not, got worse. It's not to say that it can't be built back up to a point where it's better, but just for this season, it's going to be rougher than it was. Then you look at the fact that they have Jared Goff as their quarterback. And I know what you're thinking. They had Jared Goff as their quarterback and just went 15-2. Shut up. Jared Goff is not actually that good. I'm going to break the news to you. The problem is one, he has small hands, and two, he's not very good at the position of quarterback. No,
I disagree.
I'm messing around.
I actually think that he's pretty solid.
The point is, I think that Jared Goff is due for a return to earth, because these last 2 years of his have arguably been the best 2 years of his career, depending on how you perceive the Super Bowl year with the Rams and that high-flying Sean McVay offense with Todd Gurley. I don't know how exactly you count that in, but these are 2 of his 3 best years at worst. I think that it's far more likely that he not is like terrible, but regresses to the mean of a tier that I think Jared Goff is really in. And that sounds harsh, but I think it's just true.
Well, and I think that it is important to note that this is going to be the first season where his offensive coordinator or offensive mind behind his scheme isn't Sean McVay and Ben Johnson. And so, like, this is definitely like going to be a season. And
all due respect
exactly
to John
he is as a quarterback,
Morton,
I think.
the new OC, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's no Ben Johnson or Sean McVay.
Well, and I think that part of the reason why he was hired was more of from a locker room perspective. Like he was previously an assistant coach for the Lions, and he was like a big locker room guy in that team. And I think the idea behind that is that Dan Campbell is going to be taking on a lot of the responsibilities that Ben Johnson had. And so we'll see. That actually, when I say that out loud, it kind of makes me quiver a little bit, just because of some of the, like, if there is a weakness in Dan Campbell's game, it's decision making.
You hit on the head exactly. I just had the thought, thinking about, like, what if Ben Johnson was the perfect mind to pair with Dan Campbell, where Ben Johnson is X's and O's,
right? Where it was like
he knows it, and Dan Campbell just gets to throw that element of like, screw it into it. That just kind of was a perfect blend.
Yeah.
If Dan Campbell has full unchecked screw it powers over that offense, it could get ugly. Like, it could just objectively go really poorly. Think about last season, like how many times they went for it on fourth the most times out of anybody by far, and they had like the second best conversion rate. And it was only second best because of literally how many times they went for it. Can you actually operate in that way with a non-Ben Johnson play caller there, or someone that's at least not as quality as him, which we believe John Morton not to be?
Yeah, have you seen that video of how like the Rams have like the guy whose only job is to make sure that Sean McVay doesn't walk onto the field?
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's what Ben Johnson was to Dan Campbell's offensive decision making.
Yeah.
Where he was just like, hey, let's calm down a little bit here. Like, again, this is all speculation,
just
like
but scheming up things that are
me.
good enough to make the probability worth it on fourth down. Like, it's also the analytics of not just like the aggressiveness, but also if your offense isn't as efficient, then when that conversion rate goes down, that's a big number. Turnover on downs are a big deal.
Yeah. I think legitimately that could be the difference between like 2 games last year.
Yes.
2 or
So if
3.
you throw that in as 2 games and then talk about the fact that across the board, I think basically the one upside is now we have a healthy defense and presumably a healthy Aiden Hutchinson. I have more faith in him than I don't. I do need to see it to believe it. Not that he will not be one of the best, but I don't know if he will suddenly have a season that was worthy of his start last season in some people's minds.
Yeah, and like the other thing too though is just like, they also did lose Aaron Glenn. And so like that's going to be impactful. And I think that one of like there was a few reasons why they were able to be so competent with such an injured defense, and it was because the primarily of those reasons is Aaron Glenn's ability to create advantages in the rush game without, like all of their starting interior and edge rushers. And like, people talk about how injured the defense was, and there were a lot of players. Primarily it was on the D line. And so the reason I bring that up is just to say, like, we'll have to see, right? Like, what is his name? Kelvin
Shepard.
Shepard? Yep. Kelvin Shepard is their new defensive coordinator. We'll have to see what he can do. And he does, Aaron Glenn was his mentor, and so we'll probably see certain shades of that.
To be clear, he was the previous. He was the linebackers coach for the last like 3 years.
Yeah, right. And so like obviously we're gonna see like his own spin on things, and we can assume some more health. Spoiler alert though, outside of Aiden Hutchinson and then also like some of the pieces within their secondary and Jack Campbell, they don't have a lot of depth, and maybe I guess you could throw Anzalone in there. They don't have a lot of depth in a lot of these key position pieces.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it's like
part of the reason why that's...
It's like a weird thing where it's like half of their defense you love, and then the other half... Just bumped the mic again. I'm sorry. It's closer to me than it has been before. The position groups that are weaker are also have less depth. You know what I mean? Where it's like the weaknesses of that defense are even more made weaknesses.
Yeah, and like there's also a problem when all your guys go down, and then all of a sudden all these guys who are second stringers step up. It's like, well, teams are going to notice that.
Yep.
So they lost a lot of their depth in this offseason.
Basically, to put a cap on it, I think that the Lions are destined for a regression to the means. Now, it's still a quality means compared to the rest of the Lions' history as a franchise. Like, this is still... I'm not predicting that suddenly it's going back to, like, same old Lions or anything like that. The foundation is still somewhat solid. But I think that there could be a level of the next 2 years are a bit of a reloading from the previous 2 years that we just had, where there's legitimate expectations, and going into last year, legitimate Super Bowl, like they were in those conversations. I don't know if after next season and then the season after that, they're going to be in exactly those types of conversations.
Yeah. And one thing that we've talked about in a previous episode, which is pretty interesting to think about, is just like, if they are, all of a sudden Dan Campbell just shoots up the head coaching rankings. He would
instantly elevate to probably my current Mount Rushmore. In fact, let's
at the very least, like
let's
3-4.
We can wrap up our Lions discussion and play a quick game to sort of transition us to our games. Some gimmicky content. Why don't you...
Saving intro, big boy.
We're going to... Don't laugh. I'm about to give my intro. I don't know why. Shut up. This is my big moment.
My bad.
We're naming our NFL head coach Mount Rushmores.
Beautiful. That was perfect.
So obviously these are for active NFL head coaches.
Yes. There's 2 guys. Yes, and there's two guys right off the bat.
Those
Andy
are
Reid, Sean McVay.
instantly in there, no thought about it, and they're in a tier of
Right.
their own.
Absolutely. Then I think the next two, my thought is to think about just like those older head coaches. So maybe like Harbaugh.
So
Mike
the Tomlin one
Tomlin.
is interesting because I think literally not Steelers fans, like I think half of all NFL fans would instantly put him at the 3, and the other half wouldn't even have him on the Mount Rushmore. Which is interesting because
Yeah.
I don't know where I
Yeah.
lean. I don't know how much I value Tomlin because, yeah, being above 500 consistently is really cool, and he has a Super Bowl win. Like, he's a tier above a lot of head coaches, obviously. But is that enough at this point where we put him fully in that tier 1 or even like the top of tier 2?
For me, I think so. I think part of it is because I'm a Bengals
So you have
fan.
experience, yes.
But I think the second part of it, yes. The second part of it is that when you look at the Steelers, really since Big Ben, but even before that, the front office has basically done everything they can to work against his ability to actually bring the team into a contention status.
We can consolidate this whole
that-
conversation down to one question. Do you think that the quarterback decisions that have been made are more so the front office's fault or Mike Tomlin's fault? Because no one's blameless, but who gets more of the blame?
I don't know.
Because part of being a good head coach is being able to evaluate quarterback talent, and it has been atrocious.
And what I would imagine, he's more of a defensive-minded head coach. I would imagine that a lot of those I would imagine a lot of those responsibilities would fall on the offensive coordinator, enemy of the show, Arthur Smith. And so the reason why maybe, honestly, he might not make my Mount Rushmore simply because of how long he's kept him on the coaching staff.
Yes. No, the final thing I'll say, and then we can actually name our coach, our Mount Rushmores, is Mike Tomlin has at the very least got to like fire his quarterback scouts. Like if he hasn't already, and I don't
for real.
I know that's considered mean or like
I don't know
details.
the details.
Like I don't want anyone to lose their job, but who's ever in charge of the scouting for quarterbacks has done about as a poor of a job with only the Browns above.
Okay. What I will say is this: the problem is that outside of making a blockbuster trade, I'm convincing myself he actually should be on the Mount Rushmore, because outside of making a blockbuster trade for a quarterback, if you think about the series of events that happened since Big Ben, in the moment, those weren't necessarily terrible decisions. The problem is when you have a head coach that is so good that even with a terrible roster, their floor is a 9 to 10 win season, they're never going to be picking high enough in order to draft the top prospects. And even when they did draft Kenny Pickett, it just so happened that those seasons never fell on quarterback heavy drafts. Like Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback taken in the first round.
Here's an interesting thing, because the response to that is, then why has Mike Tomlin consistently pushed to win when at this point he should know that accepting a tanking season is necessary? If you were looking at this from NBA terms, I think that you would blame Mike Tomlin, but it's harder in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'll put
That's just
Tomlin
not how the
at
NFL works, because it's only a 17
tentatively
game sample.
put Tomlin in there, but let's move on. Let's think about other coaches.
Yeah. Then the other guy we can talk about is John Harbaugh.
I'd put him there.
I think so. I think that those are kind of like my 4 guys that I'm thinking of. Some honorable mentions include like some of the older coaches. So like Sean Payton,
I would
100%
have
like those guys.
I could talk him into being in my 4 spot, Kyle Shanahan. I have a lot of respect for Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, Kyle Shanahan. And I think that, obviously,
but also
not
I
yet.
don't
Mike
because
McDonald might be there at some point.
He's responsible entirely for the 28-3 comeback. That was entirely Kyle Shanahan's
True.
fault, and that still haunts me. But Kyle Shanahan is a good
True.
coach.
I forgot about that. You're right. He's a great coach. Mike, I just want to say Mike McDonald, just so that I'm early to the
No,
conversation.
you don't get to
I'm
say
just gonna
that.
put
I
out
claimed
there.
that when we were doing our off-season overviews.
Nobody cares.
Dang
This is the
it.
video that's going to go viral.
Everyone needs to know I was on Mike McDonald first. He's the defensive Sean McVay. He literally is. He will be. Maybe not. That's a hot take.
He is. You saw it when he was in Baltimore.
Yeah.
No, I think.
Yeah.
100%.
He has the chance to be, which would be super exciting. No,
any other
I think we
guys?
named it. So you
Any
so
other guys that you
name
can
your
think
full
of?
list 1 through 4.
So I think for me it is Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin, and
I
John
would
Harbaugh.
do Andy Reid, Sean McVay. John Harbaugh, Kyle Shanahan. I sold myself on it. I really
Okay.
had to
Sounds
think
good.
about that one.
I think
I
that
really
it's
had to-
close. You really did. You really did take a second, but you got to the conclusion you needed to get to. Here's the only issue that I have with. Yeah, maybe I am convincing myself of Shanahan. I guess like
He's also been a
Well,
letdown
no,
in big
yeah,
games,
like-
but he also consistently gets to those big games.
he
So-
has. But like he has consistently been a letdown in big games. I guess it really is impactful to me. I just truly believe that if you're a
Okay, Kyle
competent
Shanahan
NFL
may be the
franchise,
mastermind
like if you as a coach,
of blowing and falling short in big games. Mike Tomlin has perfected falling short in seasons.
true, but you're right. But it's just impact. I think that if you are a head coach who provides a floor of 9 to 10 wins for a team, that with any competent front office, that should be a team that is in contention more often than it isn't.
Fair. I don't. It's really close for me, but we can go ahead. And
I think that, yeah,
we
it's
lock
just as
it
simple as
in.
that.
We can have the Mike
We can move on to
Tomlin
some more
discussion,
games.
but it's kind of personal choice. It's your flavor, your taste.
Yeah. Except for the fact that you're wrong and I'm right.